Today on Hebrew Book Review, Me-ha-gan el Beit Ha-sefer by Shulamit Tzorfati. Back to Hebrew Book Review. I'm Sabir, and today I'm talking about a book called Me-ha-gan el Beit Ha-sefer, which means From Kindergarten to School by Shulamit Tzorfati. Forgive my background, I'm on a time crunch, and this is where I am and what I got to do, and I'm sorry if the camera's wiggly. So this book is a children's learning book, and it is intended for Israeli kids, so kids who already speak Hebrew and are learning how to write. It's very similar to those scholastic books and big books that you sometimes see at Walmart, or I've also bought them on Amazon in English, that they're supposed to be like books that your kids can do maybe during the summer or maybe during the school year if they need maybe a little bit of extra help. But a lot of parents use them during the summer to kind of keep the kids' brains active, and that's kind of very much what this is. It's from kindergarten to school, so it's intended to be between kindergarten and first grade. I bought this at Pashoshim. I can tell because it's got the Pashoshim sticker. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It couldn't have been too much. It is 0% religious, no religious content at all. And the font is a huge font. So when they're teaching a letter, of course, it's a huge, huge font. And then all of the other letters are also pretty big. These are maybe the smallest letters that the kids see. You can see, my finger compared to the actual size of the letters. The letters are still pretty big. There's no cursive anywhere, of course, because it's for kids who have not even entered first grade yet. And the few words that are in the book, there's basically each time they introduce a letter, they also put a word with it so that the kids kind of get a sense of what this letter is for. And so all of those words are written in Ktiv Chaser, so the traditional spelling, which is definitely what one would expect for kids this age. So the students do not need to know anything. This is one of the first books I used with my son. I think he already knew the letters because I used flashcards to teach him the letters. But then when I taught him the flashcards for learning the letters, I didn't have him writing anything. He would just recognize the letter and know what sound it made. But this was the first book I used for him to actually learn how to write the letters. And so really the kids don't need to know anything. This is one of the first things that they're going to do, learning to recognize the letters and distinguish between similar looking letters and know what sounds they make. And so it's really one of the first books that you're going to use with them. Now the parent does have to be able to read Hebrew, know all of their letters and their nikud, and if they're not super fluent in Hebrew, they're definitely going to need some kind of a translator, because everything's in Hebrew. It's for Israeli parents teaching Israeli kids, so they assume the adults know Hebrew. All right, so this is basically your very basic book teaching reading and writing to kids who are very new, and that's part of what I love about it. Part of what I love about it is that the spaces that they give to write the letters in are huge. So little hands, my son was 6, and he still was, when he wrote it, even in English, his writing was all big and sloppy, and that's what you expect of a 6-year-old. And so you need to give them all kinds of good space, and so that's what they get with this book. They get really big spaces to practice writing. So what they do for each letter, they introduce what the letter looks like in print, and then they give a word that starts with that letter. So here we have agas, which is a pear. And so, of course, Israeli kids already know that agas means pear, or they at least are aware that it's some kind of fruit, right? If they've ever had it in their house. My kid, not so much. He knew the word pear. He didn't know the word agas. So for him, he was also learning a little bit of vocabulary, which was fun. Then they give them the space to practice writing the letter a little bit. And then at the bottom, oops, my book is falling apart. And then at the bottom, they give them a couple of letters, and they have to find the letter that we're talking about. Here we're talking about aleph, so he has to circle all of the alephs. So it gives them a little bit of recognition practice. Then more recognition practice here. He needs to, or the kids need to draw a circle or draw a line between the aleph and the words that start with an aleph. So we have agas, which means pear. We have arnav, which means bunny or rabbit. We have aviron, which means airplane. Okay, and then we have a dag, fish, which does not start with aleph. Then we have tapuach, which is an apple. So while we're going through these exercises, trying to recognize the letter at hand, we can also be building our vocabulary a little bit. This is an interesting exercise. I'm surprised they did it after only teaching one letter. Here we have chibushit, which is a ladybug, and the kids are tasked with looking at these letters and matching them up, right? Finding the same letters here in this letter list. So they've only learned supposedly aleph, but they're already supposed to be kind of looking at the letters up here and trying to find the same shaped letters down here. Now, Israeli kids, of course, have probably seen, of course, they see writing all the time. Of course, we all see signs. We see our parents write things. We see books. When we're little, we don't necessarily know how to read it, but we recognize that these different squiggles have some kind of a meaning. And so my son did not find this too difficult because we had already gone through the letter flashcards, so he already recognized what letters were what. But of course, if you think it's too difficult for your kid who this is their first book and they've only learned aleph, just skip it, right? Move on to the next one. So that was the last one. Then we're moving on to bet, right? And we've got our practice word is banana, which means banana. We've got the 3 lines to practice on, and now we're looking for bets down below. Now, one thing that you may or may not like about this book is that because it's for Israeli kids, it's not specifically for teaching them Hebrew. It's just teaching them stuff that they're going to need to be good at in first grade. It's also teaching numbers. So my kid was 6 when he used this book. So having some practice with the numbers was a good thing. So he actually always enjoyed doing these pages. Right, we also have this page where, the kids are supposed to recognize the numbers and the shapes and draw 1, 2, or 3 of each shape. And then here they're matching up groups that add up to 6, right? So we've got 1 plus 5 equals 6, 2 plus 4 equals 6. Again, if your kid is a little bit older and this math part is too easy for them, they don't have to do the math. And if you're going to get annoyed by how much math is in here, then maybe this isn't the book for you. It is maybe about 1/3 math. So, and all of the math is super easy. It's just counting and maybe adding up to a very small, low amount, like 6. All right, and here's one where you are you're matching up, you're drawing a line with the bet to the words not only that start with bet, but that also have a bet in them. So that's why Achbar was correct. And it says so in the instructions. If you, as a parent, if your Hebrew isn't so great and you don't want to have to look all of this up, just do it how you want. Do you want to include any word that has a bet in it, or does it have to start with a bet? Right? I mean, you're the parent. You make the rules. As we move on in the book, we get something like this. It's almost like a word search, only you're looking for the word perach, which means flower. And so they find it and they circle it each place that they find it, right? Wherever. I think there was a down right here, and there's a couple of crosses. So, again, it's all about letter recognition. Every once in a while, they have these little trains where you're supposed to put the letters in alphabetical order. I think it's supposed to help, help the kids remember alphabetical order. All right, and then it's not until the very end, after they've learned all of their letters, that they learn the final letters, the 5 letters that have a final form. And then they have a little activity matching up the regular letter to the final letter. So this book is great. It's a great introduction to the letters for the younger kids. Now, for older kids, to be honest, I'm not sure how much you really need to teach them how to write with block letters. In case you're not aware, no adult writes in block letters. You maybe see occasionally handwritten signs that have block letters, but if you can recognize printed letters, then you can recognize those as well. And a lot of people also make handwritten signs using cursive. When you write anything, when you write a note to yourself, when you write a letter to a friend, when you sign a birthday card, if you're doing homework, anything you do, it's so much more important in Hebrew to be able to read and write cursive. If you can't read and write cursive in Hebrew, you are going to be at a major, major disadvantage. So for older kids, you almost don't even need to teach them how to write the block letters. You just teach them how to recognize the print letters and then teach them how to write the letters in cursive. And that's how my Ulpan does it. They don't even teach that there is a way to write with block letters. They say, this is what we read and this is what we write. And you just have to recognize that these two are just two different forms of the same letter. And to be honest, it's very similar to capital and small letters, right? Capital letters and then lowercase letters. Think of a capital A and a small a. They do not look anything alike. And yet my son was 5 or 6 when he was recognizing that both of those were an A. So they can recognize that there's one letter that has 2 separate forms pretty early in life. And so they can do the same thing in Hebrew as well. So if your child is 10 years old or older, this might not be the book for them, because obviously, as you can tell, it's got way too much math that is going to be beyond their ability, right? The counting and adding up to 6, that's going to be way too easy for a 10-year-old. And the book I did actually do a page count, and it's about 35 to 40% math. And so that's a lot of math for an older kid. Now, like I said, my kid was 6, so it was perfect for him. So I love this book, especially for young kids. I love that the print is super huge and the font is really easy to read and to see. I love that they give so much recognition practice and those 3 huge lines for each letter to practice writing the letters so that they so that their little hands have enough space. A lot of books do not give enough space for a 6-year-old to write. And so And so that's one thing that I really love about the book. Really, for my purposes, the book was perfect. And the other thing that I like about it is that, they get a little bit of kid-centered vocabulary while they're at it. A lot of animals, a lot of vehicles. You get, planes and trucks and bicycles, all kinds of stuff like that. So words that kids are interested in, they do get a little bit of that vocabulary while they're at it. And for me, as a parent, I also learned all of the vocabulary about drawing a line and match this to that, right? These were not words that I had learned in Ulpan, so it was fun for me as well. I can see that if your child is a little bit older, you might not be happy with all the math that's in it. I mean, you might find it a little bit of a waste of space, right? Especially if you're on a budget, you might be thinking, why am I spending, even if it's $10, why am I spending $10 on a book that I'm only going to be using 2/3 of it? Why not find a book that's strictly a Hebrew book, only going to teach my kid Hebrew? And that's a valid point. All right, so that's Me-ha-gan el Beit Ha-sefer by Shulamit Tzorfati. It's definitely a book I recommend if you have young kids and you're trying to teach them how to read, write, and recognize letters. Extra bonus if they're also, if the math is at their level. But for older kids and for adults, definitely not. You should get a book that's more intended for older kids learning Hebrew. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave it in the comments. Hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want to see more. Lehitraot bapa'am aba'ah. See you next time.